Hey everybody, Rob here at etrailer.Com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the TST TPMS system with color display monitor on our 2016 Winnebago Vista. Now our TST is going to allow us to monitor all the tire pressures and temperatures of our tires, not only on our Winnebago, but also if we're pulling a trailer or a towed vehicle behind us. That way when we're driving down the road, if our tires get too hot, or if the pressure drops too low, we can already know and to prevent having a blowout or running down on our tire when it's really low, causing a lot of damage. Now the monitor has a widescreen display and it's going to allow us to see all of our tire pressures and temperatures, but it's also going to give us an audible alert if we have an extreme temperature or tire pressure change. In case there's a really fast leak going on and potentially a tire blowout, it's going to let us know because it's going to be monitoring the tire pressure every 5 seconds. Now the way the monitor is going to receive all the tire pressure and temperatures is from the sensors that are actually going to mount right onto the valve stem. It replaces the valve stem cap, and again it's going to send a wireless signal to the monitor, so we're not going to have to worry about having any wires or anything else. And as you can see, the monitor is wireless as well. It has a built-in battery, so we don't have to have it plugged in constantly either. Now the sensors are going to screw directly onto the valve stem, and the inner piece that threads on is a brass construction. So it's going to work with rubber, steel, and brass valve stems, and pretty much just about any of the ones that are out there, and we're not going to have to worry about corrosion or anything like that building up. Now our kit is going to include the monitor and 6 sensors so we can monitor all the tires that are on our Winnebago. There are additional sensors available. That way you can monitor up to 38 tires at one time. And it's really nice to be able to monitor the pressure and temperature of your tires. Because let's face it, a lot of new cars have TPMS sensors built in, and why not have them on your motorhome to make sure you're not going to be damaging the tires or running them too low, or potentially the pressure's too high. And if you're towing a vehicle or a trailer behind you, if that vehicle has TPMS on it, that's nice, but we can't use it if we're not driving it. So this is going to allow us to monitor those tires even when we're not driving the vehicle, just to make sure that the tires don't get too hot, and again, the pressure doesn't get too low. Here you can see the monitor, and we actually have a few different options of how we can lay it out. The front right here is showing our motorhome, so we have our 2 front tires and our dual rear tires. And this back here is going to be our towed vehicle. So it's separated. Now, we're not always going to be towing our vehicle, or we're not always going to be driving the motorhome. We may be driving the vehicle and want to take our TPMS monitor with us. Now, it's really easy to set it to where maybe we park our towed vehicle, we leave it at the campsite, and we drive our motorhome. Well, if we hit the go and the minus button, it'll take away the towed vehicle temporarily. Now, the same way goes to get it back. We can hit the go and the minus button again, and it'll bring it right back up. Now, if it's the other way around, where we want to monitor our towed vehicle's tires and we don't want the motorhome's tires to be red right now, we can press the go button and the plus button, and then it'll take away the motorhome, and now it's only monitoring the Jeep. Now the time that it comes in handy to do that is if we do leave our towed vehicle somewhere, it's still looking for these sensors. And if the sensors aren't picking up, it is going to give us an audible alert telling us that either the tire pressure is low or it can't find the sensors. So it's going to be giving us an alarm. And since we don't want that alarm to be going off because we're not monitoring these, again, we can take it away and put it back as necessary. And the plus and minus button will do a few different things for us. When we're at the main screen here, we can press the plus or minus, and it'll start cycling through each one of the tires so we can see what the pressure and temperature is at. And that comes in handy if you happen to think that one of your tires is starting to get a little low, or if it's starting to get hot and you just want to cycle through and see what each one of them is. But if we don't push the button, it will cycle through itself, letting you know each position of the temperature and pressure. Now, I know a lot of people have concerns when it comes to wireless systems because of signal strength and possible interference. But our TST system comes with a signal booster, so it's going to help pick up the signal and send those signals to the monitor from the sensors. Now it can be easily installed just about anywhere, but it does need to be hooked up to 12-volt power so that it can get the signals back to our monitor and make sure that they're sending them out correctly. On our Winnebago, our battery compartment is actually underneath the entry steps. So I went ahead and hooked up the signal booster there directly to the battery, and then I routed it underneath going towards the back tires. Now it is weather resistant, so it is okay to mount it on the inside or the outside. And the nice thing about it is that there's such a low amperage draw on it so that you can actually hook it directly to the battery and it will not drain it down. Now the sensors themselves actually have a built-in anti-theft. If you look closely, there's actually a hex nut on the back side of the sensor that's going to prevent it from being removed. So we don't have to worry about anybody tampering with it because you will need the included wrench to remove it. Now just keep in mind, in order to inflate or deflate the tires, we will need the wrench to loosen up the hex nut so that we can actually get the sensor to come loose. Now not only is our monitor going to tell us all this information, but it's also going to be how we can control and set the parameters that we want to. Because obviously our motorhome is going to be set a lot different than our towed vehicle is. So we need to make sure that the low and high pressures, the low and high temperatures are set correctly. The way we're going to get into the main menu to set all those parameters is we're going to push and hold the set button until we hear a beep. Now, as you can see, we'll bring up high pressure set, and if we press the plus button, we can start cycling through the different settings that we want. We can change between PSI and bar. We can change between Fahrenheit and Celsius. And if you go to rotate your tires, we can also use that so that we don't have to reprogram the sensors every time. If we go to low pressure set, we can press set. Now this is going to let us change the low amount of pressure. If it ever gets below this, it'll give us an alarm. Now for the front tires, it's set at 90 PSI. And if you hit go, it'll start cycling through to each one. Now we have ours set at 90. These rear tires are not used, so the factory setting is 100. And if we go back to our trailer, each time you set a trailer up, it is going to have groups of 3 tires. Now ours is not actually a trailer, it's set up for a towed vehicle, so we have our low pressure set at 30. And again, we don't have this many tires on our towed vehicle, so it's set at the factory setting. Now if we go hit back, it'll keep all of those settings in place. And again, to get back to the main screen where we see all of our settings and pressures, you can just hit back again, and it'll start reading each individual tire, letting us know where they are. So just to give you an idea of what the alarm sounds like and what it's going to do for us so we know that it's going off, we can see that our front tires are set about 98. So if I go back into the settings, I'm going to go ahead and go into the low pressure setting. And I'm actually going to raise this up to where it's over what the tires are set to. We'll go ahead and hit set. Now if we hit back, we'll go to the main screen. The alarm should sound because it's lower than when we have it set at. And this is going to identify the low pressure tire, give us a audible warning as well as a visual warning. And you can see as it's cycling through, it's going to start beeping. To turn the beeping off, you can simply push the plus button, and that'll silence the alarm. I'm going to go ahead and go back into the menu and put it back where it should be so that we don't have that alarm going off constantly. Now you can see the alarm's not going and we're not getting any kind of warning. So it's not extremely loud, but it's definitely loud enough that it's going to alert you that something's wrong, and it'll give you a visual alert saying this individual tire is low, and whichever one is low, as it cycles through, it'll continue to give you that alarm. One thing to note is if you do have your monitor plugged into constant power, if you turn the button to the off position or on position, it's not going to change. The monitor knows that it's plugged in, so the on-off switch is not going to work while it's plugged in. However, if you do unplug it and you want it to stay on, you need to keep it in the on position and it'll continue to stay on. But if we have our monitor plugged in and it happens to be in the off position, as soon as we unplug it, it's going to turn off. Now the battery is going to last quite a bit. On a full charge, our monitor should last us anywhere from 5 to 7 days. And when we do need to recharge it, from fully depleted battery, it'll take about 4 hours to charge it up. Now, in my personal opinion, I do like this system. I like the fact that I can see all the temperatures and pressures of my tires, because especially on a motorhome, it's pretty important. We don't want to have a blowout. We don't want to have a low tire, because that is going to end up causing a lot of damage to the tire, and we all know that motorhome tires are not cheap to replace. The one thing that I don't like about this system is the user interface on the monitor itself. It does a lot of different things, and we can change parameters and see a lot of different tires and set up a lot of different systems. However, you can see there is only so many buttons, so it's not very intuitive to get set up. But once it is set up, there's not very much you need to do. It's mainly just being able to see your pressures and your temperatures, and once you have the parameters set, you're ready to go. But now that we've seen what it looks like, heard the alarm, and seen it in action, let's go through the process of getting them set up and setting the IDs for each individual sensor. To begin our installation, we're going to grab our monitor and one sensor. Now if we come over to the side of the monitor on the right-hand side, we'll flip the lever to the on position. You can see the screen comes on, but we're not going to have any kind of readings yet because we have to program each one of our sensors. Now I recommend that you only do one at a time and try to keep all the other sensors away so it doesn't try to read those, and you know exactly which one you're setting. So we'll come to the left-hand side and we're going to push and hold the set button until we hear a beep. Now once that beep comes up, we should see high pressure set, and we're going to press the plus button 5 times until we get learn ID. Then we'll hit the set button, just press and release. We'll hit set again, just push and release. The Fs will start flashing. We want to take our sensor and we're going to hold it close to the bottom left hand side. We'll hit the go button. Again, we'll get a flashing signal. And once it does pick it up, we'll have an ID set up. Now we're going to continue to program all of our sensors the same way. You just want to pay attention to where you're labeling them and where they are. And like I said, I just suggest that you put it next to the tire. Now we have all 6 sensors programmed on our motorhome. However, we're going to be adding an additional 4 sensors for our towed vehicle since we're going to be flat towing our Jeep behind it. So the way we're going to program it is exactly the same way. You just want to be mindful of looking at the monitor and paying attention to the tire position. So right now that's the 6th tire, so we just want to scroll until we get to behind this trailer section or the towed vehicle behind it. Now that's going to be tire number 1. So again, we'll just hit that set button. The Fs will flash. We'll take our sensor, hold it close to the bottom, hit the go button until it learns the ID. And just like the other ones, we're going to hit set to store it, and we're going to set this on the left front of our towed vehicle and just cycle through until we have all 4 of those tires programmed. You want to start by removing any caps that you have on your valve stems. Then we want to grab the brass hex nut that's in your kit, and we're going to thread this onto the valve stem until it bottoms out completely. Depending on the wheels you have, it may be a little bit of a tight fit to get your fingers in there, but we need to thread this, again, all the way on there until it bottoms out. And once that bottoms out, we'll grab our sensor. And we just want to thread this on just like a regular valve stem cap. You will hear a little bit of air coming out. You want to continue to tighten it until the air stops. And again, the cap will bottom out. You don't want to go too tight with it, but you want to get it nice and snug. Then we can take the included wrench and we want to fit this in behind so we can bring that nut to where it's going to be backed off against the valve stem. Now, if you have enough room, you can get your finger in there to get it started, to get it towards the sensor, and then we just want to snug it up with that wrench. Take our wrench, go around the hex nut, just get it to where it's nice and snug against that sensor. It's going to be the same process for each one of our sensors, so we're going to go through and do that for all of them. Now, it may take a few seconds for the reading to show up, but as you can see, we already have a pressure reading and a temperature reading on our number 1 tire here. Now that we have all of our sensors plugged in, we should be getting readings on all of them. Now, you may still have a low pressure alert because our towed vehicle tires are set much lower than our RV, so they are going to be setting off that alarm. But we can change the parameters for each tire a little bit later. At this point, we can go ahead and set the monitor to down, and we want to grab the signal booster out of our kit. Now, this needs to get hooked to the battery, and it does have quite a long cable, so we can stretch it out to get the most signal out of it. Now, on our Winnebago, our battery is actually right underneath the entry steps here. We have a latch right in the front, and then we're able to actually remove this entire step. Slide it out of the way. We can place it right up top for now. But inside we'll have all of our batteries, and we want to hook up the red cable to the positive and the black cable to the negative. But before you hook anything up, I always suggest that you take out the fuse from the fuse holder. That way we don't have any kind of accidental blowing of the fuse. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, set it aside for now, and then we just want to hook up our 2 wires. Now I'm going to use a 1/2-inch socket to remove the nut that's on the battery. But obviously, use whatever socket fits that's holding it in place on yours. Remove one off the negative. Remove one off the positive. And then again, just take our 2 wires, sliding them over the terminal, and then reinstalling the nut. Now, we have a few different options of how and where we want to mount our signal booster. Now, this can be mounted inside or outside. I recommend mounting it on the outside because it is weatherproof, and it is going to give us the best signal producing amount because it's going to be closer to those sensors. So again, it has a pretty good amount of wire length, so I'm actually going to route mine down through the battery box. We can see the ground underneath, and I'm going to route it towards the back, towards the tires, so that I can mount it somewhere, maybe on the inside of the frame protected, and we have some hook and loop fastener we can use. It also has a couple eyelets so we can screw it to the frame, use a couple zip ties, whatever you feel is necessary. But again, I'm going to route this down so it can go underneath. I'm going to go underneath my motorhome and make sure that it's going to be routed where it's appropriate and where it's still going to be protected. I am, however, going to take a few zip ties and kind of tie my fuse holder here to the battery cables so that everything is still accessible and we can check the fuse and replace it if necessary. Now that all my wires are hooked up, I'm going to go ahead and put my fuse in place. And if we find the actual signal booster itself, we'll see that the red light is going to be on. You can see here, since I dropped it down, just wanted to show you that that red light will come on when you do have power and when it is sending that signal out. Now again, it's a lot easier to see here because I'm going to be mounting mine underneath the motorhome. And with our cables hooked up, we can put the battery tray back in place and latch everything down. Now that we have all of our sensors set and the signal booster is installed, we're getting all of our readings. Now we can go ahead and get the dash mount, and we can either use the dash mount, so we can just keep it right here on our dash, or we can glance over and see what's going on with our tires while we're driving down the road. Now we do also have a suction cup window mount if you'd rather use that. On the back here, there's some little tabs. If we flip the monitor over, we'll just slide right into the monitor, slide it upwards, it locks it down. You can pretty much put it in any position you want. And we'll just unlock the suction cup. You can stick it to a piece of glass, flip the lever down, lock it into position, and then we just have a couple little knobs here to tighten up the tension so we can get it to the angle we want to see it at. Now whenever we do need to charge our monitor, it's a super simple process. We're going to have a 12-volt adapter. Now it's just going to have a USB on there, it's pretty common. And it does come with a cable. One end will be the USB that plugs directly into the adapter, and then the other end is going to be a micro USB. I know a lot of us have either phones, tablets, or something else that uses a micro USB, so it's pretty convenient that we can use this 12-volt adapter along with the cable to charge it. Just keep in mind, the manufacturer does recommend that you do not leave the monitor plugged in if it's fully charged. That's typically true for most electronics. We don't want to have it overcharging and continuously having power source going to it once it's fully charged. So once it's fully charged, we can just unplug it and the battery should last us plenty of time. But now that all of our sensors are installed and we're getting all of our reading on our tire pressures on our monitor, we're ready to hit the road. But that'll finish up your installation and your look at the TST TPMS sensors and color display monitor on our 2016 Winnebago Vista.